Sam.
I'm Jack.
And today we've got Gareth Lake with us. What, Gareth?
Hello, guys.
This is exciting for me.
Why is it exciting, Sam?
Well, I've known Gareth. I don't remember life without Gareth. We, my dad and your old man were good mates, and we've been on family holidays together. Well, pretty much grown up together.
I
haven't
remember
we?
watching a video, a VHS somewhere, I don't know where it was, of all of us together, all in shell suits, and
Yeah.
we're all wearing like the similar kind of shell suits. I remember saying to my mum, "Why are we all in the same stuff? Was that just a fashion?" She went, "No, your dad got come into a load and sold them to everyone." Must be where I get it from.
I ended up working with your old man years later, and he never changed.
Go on, tell me the story.
I don't.
Every time I speak to you about my dad and at work, you tell me the story about when he was standing behind.
He was stood behind the pillow, his old man.
Right.
And
go on, say it. He had a bit of a gut.
he had a bit of a gut, and his beer belly was hanging past his pillow, and he was like hiding. I could hear him giggling. I went, "What are you doing, Eli?" And he went, "Fuck!" And he poked his head round. He goes, "Do you see my feet?" He had a brilliant sense of humour, didn't he? I loved your dad. Yeah.
We'll touch on him shortly, no doubt.
Yeah, but first, well, you explain a little bit. I've asked you to come on the podcast. We've both had our own struggles in life. Yours got you into a bit of trouble a few times, and I asked you to come on and speak about the times you ended up in prison and stuff, and just maybe inspire someone else that's heading down the wrong path to change their life around.
Yeah, for me, taking it back from a kid, when people always say, "Oh, you must have come from like a broken home," and it must have been like people. There's normally a stigma with why people are getting in trouble from a young age. But for me, we had a good upbringing, as you know. You were around back then as well. I had good parents. My mum done everything she could for us. We just had what everyone else done. Good holidays. We were brought up well. We weren't dragged up. For me, it started changing when I started hanging around with older people. I was always bigger, so I could get into the clubs at 15, 16, whereas everyone else couldn't. I was hanging around with 18, 19, 20-year-olds when I was still at school. And how I remember that is my teachers used to say to me, "Gareth, can you tell your friends to stop picking you up in the staff car park in their car?" Mm-hmm. I was like 14, 15, they were all driving, so that goes to show how much older than me they were. And it actually got to a point, I was thinking this on the way down there, where they were all not violent, but they loved to scrap, and I didn't. And I remember the first time we all went out together. I won't say his name, but I was around one of my mates, and my mum was very strict in terms of where I could stay and what time I had to be out. Obviously, with good reason. I was 14, 15 years old. So it was always, yes, you can stay around exes as long as I speak to their mum. Yeah, no worries. Well, this particular friend, his mum had no qualms of just ringing up my mum saying, yeah, they'll be in by 8. Had no intention of us being in by 8. She didn't care if we didn't come home at all. So that was enough for my mum, naturally. She trusted what this woman was saying, and we were allowed to stay out. So I remember being out, it must have been 10, 11 o'clock at night. I'd never been out. I must have been 14. I'd never been out at this time at night before on my own. But all these boys were 17, 18, so they didn't care. And I remember them having a fight, and it was near Morrison's. I remember it like it was yesterday, and my memory's shocking. I remember this guy obviously got a little bit gobby, he was pissed. One of my mates chinned him, another one of them kicked him when he was on the floor, and I remember looking at it, honestly, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. I'd never really seen violence, and I just saw it, and I remember crying. And you know how I remember it? Is because I said something to my mate, he told me to shut up. I said something again, I was crying, I was a bit of a mess, they were all a little bit older. He told me to shut up, I didn't shut up, he chinned me, and to this day my jaw still clicks when if I eat fast. And that's how I remember it, and that was, I'm going to say, must have been 18 years ago, that was. And the more that happened, the more I'd see, by hanging around with certain individuals and you see certain things, the more it happened, the more normal it became. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying that you should ever normalise violence, but it was, if you get brought up around violence, I suppose it's not that much of a big deal. I wasn't brought up around violence, therefore it was a big deal, but the more I saw it, it became less of a big deal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
And then, before you knew it, we were in the pubs, and I was part of that. Whereas where I was standing at the back and shitting myself and thinking, that's not right, geezer didn't really do anything. Like, why are we punching people for no reason and kicking them when they're down? And I remember seeing another one of my mates who's actually a good friend of mine now, and he's turned his life around as well. I remember watching him hit someone with a brick once, a house brick, and I honestly thought he was dead. He had blood coming out of his ear. I thought, and I thought, you've killed him. You've actually, again, I cried on that occasion. Got told to shut up because I was the youngest in the group, and because I was quite big. They're like, "What are you fucking crying for, you buff?" And I was like, because you might have seriously hurt him.
Yeah. Where do you reckon that switch come? Because I remember one time as well. I won't mention the geezer's name, but we were in the pier, and some girl was hitting you, and then a lad hit you on his knees. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And then me and you, we had to leg it, didn't we?
Yeah. Well, I forgot that was you that I was with.
Yeah.
We ran all the way back to my mum's house.
Yeah.
And I had a massive golf ball on the top of my head.
On your head. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember you.
I'm not going to mention Larry McCulloch's name.
Yeah. And
I'm friends with him now, and I have been for a long time, and we laugh about that even now. I remember he whacked me in the mouth, kneed me straight in the forehead, and this big golf ball come up, and I remember holding in my tears, getting outside, just going, run, and ran all the way back to my mum.
I got thrown over a pool table. And we ran back to his mum's.
Sam was already underneath the pool table.
It's like a duck and cover.
It's all right, because my mate Sam, he'll come out and help me.
I'm a lover. But I remember, we're both fearful, but then as the years have gone on, you've got no fear now whatsoever, and that obviously you do boxing and that now, and that's how you get rid of that.
We'll get on to that.
Yeah,
but
where do you reckon that switch changed?
I don't think there was ever a day, not a particular day, but there were scenarios that each time certain scenarios took place, it made the confidence in me grow, or there was more of a lack of consequence, if you like. I remember same guy actually that hit the guy with the brick I was just talking about. I'm good friends with now. Makes you sound horrible when you say you hit someone with a brick, but he's actually a really nice bloke now. We're talking we were 15, 16, 17 years old. He's now early 30s, same as me. He, I remember one time he was quite known for being quite violent. He was quite a tough lad growing up, and I remember he hit me once down the beach, and I remember a girl stuck up for me. Sophie Martin, she said, "Don't fucking hit him, he's all right." And I remember thinking, "Fuck for that, he's gonna punch my head in." Yeah. I was on my own. Just hanging around down the arcades as you do. This kid hit me. There's a massive group of people there. I was totally embarrassed because I didn't do anything. The reason I didn't do anything is because I shit myself, is the truth. I thought he was going to punch my head in. Before I had a chance to actually shit myself, she jumped in, stopped him from hurting me, which I still thank her for this day, because I had nothing about me then. Not so long after that, we're talking a matter of months, we had arranged to have a fight, me and this kid. And honestly, this is probably the first proper fight I had, other than at school. Outside school, I mean. I remember being on the beach outside the pier, and we had a fight, and I ended up on top of him, and I just kept hitting him to the point where the other guy who done my jaw that time, he pulled me off him, and he said, "You're gonna kill him, get off him." And I just remember coming off him, pumped up, thinking, we've gone from you hitting me a couple of months ago to me shitting myself to now me showing you to a certain degree, never fucking do that again.
And that's where you thought I'm capable.
And then little scenarios like that is my point. It was scenarios like that made me think, actually, I'm not going to let people do that, because although I might not come across like that because I'm not a violent person, I wasn't then. You're not going to treat me like that. You're not going to get away with that. Like, I let him hit me that day, and I had a girl stick up for me. If it weren't for a girl jumping in, I'd have probably got my head filled in. And then I thought, you know what, that's never going to happen to me again. I'm never going to let someone do that to me and make me feel that way again. So I remember walking off. It wasn't so much to being hit, it was everyone saw me get hit and didn't do any, and I didn't do anything about it.
So it's an ego thing.
Yeah. And then from I'm not going to say from that day onwards, but from that time period onwards, 14, 15 years old, I thought no one is ever going to hit me again. No one is ever going to embarrass me again. That's just one of multiple scenarios that I can give. There was a time at school I had a problem with a kid in the year above me. He's a friend of yours now, Andrew Osborne. He's actually a nice bloke, really nice bloke. But we're talking, again, 14 years old. And he was a year above me at school. We had a problem, I can't remember what it was over, probably something ridiculously stupid. And I remember we had agreed to have a fight outside afterwards, and the whole day I was shitting myself. I was thinking, they're a year above. You know what it's like now. Someone being a year older than you makes nothing. It's nothing. But back then, it was, they're the bigger boys, they're the older boys. He's going to have all these mates there. And I was always like a lone at school, I didn't have loads of, like, I wasn't part of a big group of friends at
Yeah.
school. I had mates, and I would say I was a popular kid, but for the wrong reasons. I weren't.
You floated around to different people.
Yeah, like a lot of my friends, a lot of the people who were my friends were probably more my friends out of fear or out of we need to kind of say hello to him and let him play with us and blah blah blah, because all his mates are going to be outside of school. And I remember all my mates, the ones I was telling you about, came outside the school and they were like, "It's you and him. You're going to have to go for it." We went outside and I remember these boys. I don't know if Andrew would even remember this. We had a. I sat straight now. It's probably handbags, a little bit of pushing, cut the headlocks, and another one of the older kids held on to me while someone hit me, and it was all just madness. But I come out there pretty much unscathed, held my own, and thought, I'm fighting with the older boys now, and I'm all right. Do you know what I mean? I'm not been filled in, and it was just, again, I could sit here for ages and name multiple scenarios, but they're just two scenarios where I've come out of that particular scenario and thought, no one's doing this to me anymore. I'm not having it. Like, I can hold my own against these people. I don't need to be scared of them.
I'm glad you do it in the ring these days instead of on the streets.
Well, then it just led to multiple arrests, multiple trouble, multiple fights on the street.
What age was you when you first went into prison?
15.
And was that due to violence?
Yeah. Favourite chicken. Me and my mate Jody had a straightener with two guys. I was on tag, so I'd been arrested multiple times, and when you're young, it's not so much when you're older. When you're young, you get away with so much. Like, you have to go through the court system for so many times. If it's just for everyday fighting in the street, fucking stealing this or criminal damage, you have to go to court multiple times before they'll send a child to prison. And I must have been to court 10, 15, 20 times for multiple stuff. Nothing of any substance. Just low level stuff, smashing a window, fighting in the street, whatever. And I remember being on tag. I should have been at home at 7 o'clock. This was for something else, and then I ended up being a favourite chicken at 12 o'clock, getting in a scrap with two drunk blokes, me and my mate Jody. weren't even, you say scraps, but at 15 years old, they're not really. Do you know what I mean? It's more like rolling round and. Do you know what I mean? No one's getting, other than them scenarios, though, no one's getting really hurt. Someone might have got a black eye or a scuffle or whatever. But again, this is just proof that no matter what level of violence, you can't go round fighting, because eventually,
it only takes one.
Will happen.
Punch.
I met multiple people in jail that are in there for the same thing, and I must have left. I could think of 10 off the top of my head scenarios where I've left someone bleeding on the floor and just walked off, and you never know. I can think of 2 serious ones where I genuinely thought I might be in a pickle here. And it's only luck more than anything.
I used to have a lot of fear over that. If you have scraps with your mates when you go out and that, and you end up clashing with different youngsters and they've had a scrap, that used to play on my mind for days. And I remember one scenario when we were younger, me and Will Burton and Vinny, we hit this geezer that hit our friend Alex, and the next day a bloke was found on the beach, and I remember obsessing thinking it was that bloke. It was nothing to do with him, but I remember thinking, fuck, we're all going to go to jail. It was so scary. Do you know what I mean? It was.
I've met multiple people that when I was in jail that are in jail for that, and it's mostly when the person they've hit or had a fight with are drunk, because when you're drunk you can't control your muscles as much. So if you, for example, if you got hit to the floor when you were fully sober, you tense up and your neck would stiffen up and you wouldn't let your head hit the floor. When you're drunk, you hit the floor, your neck will bounce back, your head.
You don't know your own strength when you've had a drink as well. I've been out with you, and we're not scrapped, but we've just been out with you and dancing with you and being thrown around. I felt like I've been 10 rounds with Tyson the next day. You know when you've been out on a night out with Gareth.
So and then.
So you were 15 when you first went to prison.
That was actually what that thing I was just telling you about, favourite chicken. That was actually what I went to prison for the first ever time. I got 8 months for that.
So how was that then?
Sorry.
So how was that? You're 15 years old.
I'll tell you how. Because by this time, a lot of people my age, few years below, few years above, everyone around the same age, I'd got a bit of a name for myself in terms of, right, he's not really what this is obviously when we're children still. If you was to say that now, well, I've got a name for myself, no one fucks with me, everyone says to grow up. But at the time, at 15, that is the truth. All my mates that I had and the group I was with were known for being the group that you just didn't really fuck about with because it's more hassle than it's worth for you. But you'd probably end up getting filled in, or
then the alpha male comes into it, and you'd be
but I thought I was Barry Big Potatoes, because I was hanging around with older blokes. Everyone knew not to fuck with me now around my age. Don't get me wrong, 19, 20, 21 years old, they were probably like, who's this little twat? But my age, 15, 16, 17, 18, whatever. Anyway, I remember, this is the truth, when I was in court, didn't care, on the way to court, didn't care, in the court, didn't care, got into the dock, they sentenced me, and because I'd been to court so many times, I just thought, that's another court case, I'll be out of here, I'll have £100 fine, or I'll get an extension on my tag, or I'll get supervision order, whatever. It's happened so many times that it's not really, I don't really bother. Then it dawned on me, as soon as they said, right, multiple times they said to me, we're going to give you a custodial sentence, but we're going to suspend it, which means you've got a certain time period where you can't get in trouble, or they will revoke your sentence and they will send you to jail for that time period. So I was waiting for that. Right, we're giving you 8 months custodial sentence, and I was waiting for suspended. They didn't suspend it. Imminently, that you're going right now today, and look, I've got goosebumps now. You can see them because that's how much I remember it. And people say to me, "What did you do last month?" Or they asked me something about 6 months ago. I can't remember, but certain scenarios stay in your head, and I'll always remember. How many people have been to jail? Not many. You'd like to think you'd remember the first ever time you went to prison.
What was that feeling like then? When
I cried. I went down to the cell. As soon as the cell door shut and there was no one there, I sobbed like a baby, and I thought, "This is it. I'm 15 years old." And YOIs was 18. I don't know what it's like now. It was 15 to 18-year-olds. So I was one of the youngest ones as well, and I knew what some of my 18-year-old mates were like, how big they were, how confident they were, how tough they were. And I thought, I've now got all this I'm going to mix up with another 500 of these people. But part of me is having a conversation with myself. Gareth, you're all right. Like, you can look after yourself. You'll be fine. Then I was like, but I don't want to go there. I don't.
So mixed emotions and.
Yeah, and I just remember crying. I remember a woman coming. I remember her. She came into my cell. She's actually one of the. It was Group 4 back then. I don't know what it is now. She came and sat with me on my little concrete bed where I had my head in my hands, and she was like, "Look, you're gonna be all right. This has happened. You're not the only one who this has happened to." But she really was nice to me, and she didn't have to sit in. That's not her job. She's not a youth offending worker. She's there to secure the courts as such, and to look after the prisoners while they're there. She went the extra mile. But she knew that I was 15 years old.
You were fortunate with a good egg there.
Yeah, but I was also very big as a 15-year-old, quite tall. So I didn't look like a 15-year-old. I looked like one of the older lads, but I weren't. And mentally, I was still only 15 years old. But looking back on it now, I've got a 10-year-old daughter. It's madness. 15 years old, you're asked to a child. I don't care what anyone says. You are a child. And I hadn't even finished school, I don't think, at this time, because I remember getting out and going back and doing my GCSEs. It was just a mad feeling. I remember. I'll tell you a weird scenario. I got there on my first ever day, and about 2-3 months prior to this, I'd had a scrap in the middle of the town centre with a guy called Mark Vince, who I'm actually friends with now. And we'd had a big scrap in the middle of town. We done what we'd done to each other, went our separate ways. I hadn't spoke to him, heard from him, nothing since that day. It was kind of an Ipswich versus Felixstowe thing. He was from Ipswich, I was from Felixstowe. We didn't get on for literally that reason only. And then I walked into the prison. Who was the first person I saw when I got there? Him. And I just remember thinking to myself, shit, I knew he'd been to jail several times. He knows the system. He's probably got mates in here. He knows how it all works. I'm brand new to this. I'm a virgin to all of this. And I thought, he's going to make my life hell in here. Even if he's got 5 mates, it's them 6 versus me, isn't it? I don't know a single soul in here other than him, and he hates me. And he come up to me, he said, "Are you all right?" He had obviously seen that I'd been crying, my face was probably puffy, whatever. Cried all the way from Ipswich Magistrates Court to it was Woodbridge, Warren Hill then. And yeah, I just remember getting there, and he basically just said to me, like, "You all right?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Are you?" He said, "Yeah." And I respected him from that day, because he could have made my life hell, and he didn't. He kind of totook me under his wing to a certain degree, and my life could have been
saw a side you hadn't seen before.
My life could have been 10 times harder if it wasn't for him, and I still respect him to this day for that.
Yeah.
Because if that had been the other way around, I don't know if I'd have been adult enough to. You tried to.
Well, you wasn't adult. You were 15, but. That's interesting because all that fear and that emotion wasn't enough to stop you going back and reoffending.
No, because again, similar scenario. I then realised I can do this. That's not that bad.
Yeah.
The same, exactly. The scenario was different, but the principle is the same as the scenario.
So your
before.
successes in situations have been your downfall in a way as well.
Because every time I've been to prison, and I've been to prison 5 times, I've gone my ways twice. I went. There was 8. It was 8. They also done an 18 to 21s back then. I don't think they do that anymore. So I'd done 18 to 21s, and then I'd done main over 21s adult jail twice. And every single time I managed to develop friendships. I managed to develop. I don't know how to explain it. So basically, every time I went there, I'd end up being absolutely fine. Everyone would like me. Everyone got on with me. If I had any problems, I'd soon sort it out one way or another, whether it was through violence or other means. And I never had any. I had trouble, but trouble that I kind of wanted to have to a certain degree. I can't stand bullies, and one of the times I remember having a few fights with people for whatever reasons, and then they came to my cell one morning and said, "Right, we're shipping you out," and they sent me to a jail in Leicester, and they put me on the anti-bullying wing because I was quite a violent inmate in Norwich. They sent me to Glen Parva in Leicester. Where they put me on. I've gone from a prison where there's 200 inmates and I knew 150 of them. I was on the server, I had the best job, everyone knew me, I was there for quite a lengthy period of time. And then they sent me to another jail where I didn't know a single person, and they put me on anti-bullying wing, and there was 10 units, 100 inmates on each unit, and every single one of them inmates on that unit was on there for bullying on another unit. So you've gone from putting someone who hates bullies in with bullies, and I just thought this is not going to end well. And I'll briefly tell you a quick scenario. When I was 15, I had a fight with a guy in the YYs. He was from Essex. I'm obviously from Felixstowe. It was over nothing. We had a fight, handbags. It got screwed up. It got split up before it even really took place. He told me he was going to do this to me. I told him I was going to do that to him. He left 2 weeks later. Didn't see him for years. Went to Leicester. They shipped me out to Leicester. Went down to get my food. Who's serving my food? Yeah, mental. You shouldn't write it.
Yeah.
And who's the one person you don't want to annoy in prison?
The person serving your food.
Yeah, boys
I can tell you that from experience. You don't want to piss people off that are serving your food.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just remember looking at him. Same scenario as Mark Vince. Really, he looked at me. He said, "Are we good?" I said, "I am." He said, "Are you?" I said, "Yeah." Because he's on servery. He doesn't want to lose his job for something that happened 5 years ago. I've just been shipped out to a new prison. I don't want to start. I want to start as I mean to go on, so I want to try and behave myself. I've just been shipped out. They've told me they're going to be keeping a close eye on me, blah, blah, blah. And he shook my hand, I shook his hand, and we were mates after that. Yeah. And he could have made my stay very difficult if he wanted to.
Yeah.
I was on the servery with I won't tell you his name, another one of my mates, you wouldn't know him anyway. And a boy come in while we were on servery who would actually give a statement against him, and this is the kind of stuff that happens. Let me just tell you, I've seen him do some horrible stuff to his food before giving it to him. We used to have a hot plate, and at the top right of the hot plate there would be what we'd call the guy's name, his section, and don't touch that food unless a certain individual come down to get it. That was his food. I'm not going to tell you the stuff that was done to that food, but if you'd be sick if you'd ever eaten it and then found out later what had happened to it.
Really?
But that's just the kind of stuff that happens. Like you're mixing with,
and still happens.
And it probably still happens. Like I say, it's been a long time. My daughter's 10 years old. I haven't been in any trouble since she was born.
How long were you at Glen Parva for?
I think I served the last about 6 months, 8 months. I was serving 3 years at the time. And I think I was definitely on my last third of that.
How many times have you been to prison?
5, but most of them, I'll be honest, most of them are petty. I had a driving offence, I got 3 months for it. I got 8 months for. They're all violence really, other than that driving offence. Yeah. Driving offence, the only other thing they've all been fighting, other than one which was a driving offence, which I got a police chase, and I got 3 or 4 months for that. It was hardly worth it. I had a shit, brushed my teeth. It was time to come home.
Was there any point? I asked this because there's probably some people out there, but when in a way where when you got sentenced, you were glad because that would bump up your street cred even more.
Not the first time, definitely not, because I was too scared. I shit myself. I've never been so scared in my life because it was just horrific. I'd heard stories. A lot of my mates had been. As much as I was Barry Big Potatoes out here, I knew I wasn't going to be in there. Yeah. I went from being I mean, we live in a little town. I was a big fish for my age in a little town, and now I was going to be kind of fed to the wolves. That's how I perceived it to be. Whereas actually, when I was there, got to know people. You know what I'm like. I'll speak to anyone wherever I go, and I've always been like that.
Yeah.
I'll make friends everywhere I go, and then you become. It's weird because people always say like, oh, he was the boy in jail and he was this. It wasn't that I was. I don't know how. It wasn't that I was top dog in jail. It's just I got on with everyone. No one give me shit. I was respectful and fair to everyone. But I also had a reputation of, if you do piss him off, he's not going to sit there and take it. Do you know what I mean? He will hold his own against you. And most of them are vulnerable even at that age, vulnerable drug addicts. A lot of them just don't have the violent mentality, or they don't even have it to stick up for themselves. So out of 200 inmates, you've probably only got 40 of them that will have a row, and then out of them 40, I'm in the top 5 of people who can look after themselves. So you're never going to get trouble. And then when you realise that actually I've been to a place where you're housing some of the most violent people and most, do you know what I mean? They all of them have a lack of respect for the law, and I've still managed to be alright in there. So then when I got out, it wasn't a deterrent, put it that way, and it should have been. I wish it had been. If that had been a lot harder for me, then I would have I'd have done anything in my power not to go back. But the fact that I've done it once now, I wasn't scared to go back.
Because it takes away the unknowing of what.
I had no money, no job, no girlfriend, no nothing. I went to prison. I come out. I think I served 3 months of an 8-month sentence. I got released a month early on tag. That was the first ever sentence. I come out, my life was exactly the same. I come back to hang around with the same people doing the same thing, still no money, still no job.
Didn't learn nothing from it.
Didn't know.
You said something interesting before when we were out there, and you said even though you'd done a short sentence, you got so used to it, you were thinking for a little time of how to go back.
No, that was after I got hit with the lengthy one, which I said there was a pattern. They were all short sentences. I think my longest sentence before the 3 years was 8 months. That was my longest sentence. So when you're getting 8 months, do 3. You get 3 months, do 6 weeks. You get 6 months, do 3 months. It's pointless. Like honestly, like I went to Thailand for a month. Do you know what I mean? That's not. That's the kind of time you go.
That was better though, wasn't it?
It was a little bit. I'll tell you what, prison was cleaner. So it was just weird because they're not deterrents, and I think what's weird was the getting hit with a heavy sentence because I can only presume they had seen me several times and thought, right, you've been to jail now 4 times. You obviously haven't learned your lesson. So I'll tell you what, and this was the most serious offence that I'd actually ever been arrested for. They actually told me expect anything from 4 to 6 years. That was what my barrister said. That was in Crown Court, and so I had my head set. I was on remand for about 3 months before I even got sentenced. And they said to me, expect anything from 4 to 6. So I had it in my brain, I'm getting 6 years. Anything less than that, I knew was a bargain. When they give me, I think they give me 34 months or 32 months, something like that. And I had to serve half of it. But I'm probably the only person to ever get touching on 3 years and skip downstairs to out the courtroom because I was buzzing to get that. I had my heart set on 6 years. I'd mentally prepared myself as a kid. Then when they told me you'd only been given 3 years, plus I'd already done 6 months, 4 to 6 months on remand. I think I only had about another 10 months left, and then I went back, done 4 or 5 months, and then got shipped out to Glen Parva. But the point that you're making is, I felt institutionalised is what I found out that it was that I had. I'd been there for. It's not even a long time, but it was a long time to me, and everyone's different. Some people could spend 20 years in jail and never feel institutionalised when they're released back out into the public. Some people can serve 12 months and feel like shit when they get out, and that is how I felt. I remember it only lasted about 2 weeks, and I remember because I was so regimented, I was doing the same thing every morning, getting up, do it, and a lot of my friends who actually I've got a couple of friends who have been to prison and been in the army, and they said they're very, very similar in a lot of ways, very regimented, very strict, YOIs was a lot different to adult jail. You can pretty much do what you want, lay in bed all day if you want, whereas YOIs, they want you to do like education, they want you to go on courses, and you have to get up at a certain time, everyone's doors open, and you have to get out and do whatever, whether it's go to work, go to education, you have to do something. what was weird is you used to go to work and get paid like £10 a week. Imagine if someone said to you now, come work for me, you've got to do 4 hours, 6 hours a day, every day.
That's why I left where
and we're going to give you £10. You break that down hourly, you're on about 40p. But it was something to get out of our cell, and then come pay.
Did you enjoy the routine?
Yeah, to a certain degree. Like, again, me and my friend, because of the way I am, I gathered together a large group of friends. We were on servery, which is the best job you can have in the prison, and we had a good group of friends. Like we had a lot of stuff going on, if you know what I mean. I'm not like.
Are they just friends you keep in prison, or do you know?
Yeah, they are friends that I kept in prison, and then I kept in contact with them when I was out. But this was only at a certain period in my time. Between 15 and 21, I would say, was my worst years.
Yeah.
But then when I made, fast forward in maybe 4 or 5 years to when I was 21, when you make a decision to actually, I had a daughter, I had a steady relationship, things were going good for me, I had things to lose now, and I want to change my life. It wasn't just a matter of stopping committing crime. By stopping committing crime, you had to stop going to the places you were going, hanging around with the people you was hanging around with, like living the life that you were living. I was around alcohol a lot. I was around pubs, clubs, certain groups of friends, being out all times of the night, and I had to make a conscious decision to I remember even having conversations with people who I still speak to now, but I remember saying to them, like, we can't hang around anymore like we have been.
Yeah, well, there's that cliche people say, pick your circle carefully, but that's true. That is, because whoever you hang around with is what you betray.
What's weird is a lot of them continued for many years later. They've sorted themselves out now. We're in our 30s, but at the time, a year later, they're still in and out of prison. 2 years later, still in and out of prison. Yeah. And I knew, just by looking at them, that I made the right decision.
Yeah.
I had a daughter who's now nearly 11, and the second I laid eyes on her, you have no choice but to grow up.
Yeah.
If you don't grow up,
and people seeing you grow up has probably made them make an ultimate decision. That's how it works. Someone sees someone like you change their life around. It's the same within recovery. Someone sees people doing so well that inspires them to do it.
Well,
it's
the weird thing is they were all a lot older than me, and I kind of outgrew that lifestyle well before they did.
Yeah, so
I come into it a lot later than them. So they were already 3-4 years deep of that life before I'd got involved in that life, and then it still took them another 3 or 4 years. I was only probably in that life for 5 or 6 years, whereas they was probably in it for 10, 13, 14 years. Some of them are still in and out of prison now.
You how you are now, if you could go back in time and give the old you in them years advice, what would that advice be?
This is going back to what I was saying to someone the other day. I wish, I know this is a little bit off subject what you just asked, but I wish someone had grabbed hold of me when I was 14, 15 years old, and maybe there isn't the resources and the manpower to be able to individually assess everyone's life when they're 14, 15 years old, but there must have been signs, whether it be school teachers, I don't want to say parents because I can't blame them, but my dad could have been a little bit more active in my life, took a bit more of an active role, but anyone, youth offending, by youth offending it's probably too late, but someone grabbed me and just said, whether it would have worked or not, you just don't know. But
that was where I was. My head was thinking. I was thinking, would you have actually listened?
No, this is the thing. I keep getting sidetracked, but when people say to me now, "I wish you'd have started boxing when you were that age, because we could have really done something with you." No, because you wouldn't have got hold of me at that age. I wasn't mature enough to train 5 days a week and stay consistent. I would have just fucked it all off and gone to the pub and mates and had a scrap. Especially if you'd have taught me how to fight properly, then I'd have just been even more dangerous when I'd have gone out with my mate. That's how I perceive it to be. But I wish someone had got hold of me, and I do think that I'd probably never do it, but I would love, whether it be me, not so much you because you didn't go that way in life, but you are doing something similar with a different aspect. There should be someone go around the schools, and there should be someone that speaks to the younger people, especially that kind of person. Don't get me wrong, you're probably talking a minor percentage of the school year. If you've got 100 kids, only probably 2, 3, 4 of them are going to go that way. The rest of them are going to be absolutely fine. So you can't cater for everyone, but I don't know if you could stop one person from going down that route, because it's not just that one person, is it? It's all the violence that I inflicted on other people, all the misery. Mate, I go up to school now to take my daughter to school, and I see people that I've knocked out when I was 15, 16, 17. Yes, alright, we're a lot older now. He's going to still remember that. And at the time, I remember whacking one of my mates actually when we were back at school, and I got on really well with his parents. And I don't know why, we had an argument over Solar Car Park, and I whacked him, chinned him, give him a right black eye. I remember his mum seeing me a couple of days later, and she said, "You're a horrible little boy, you're no longer welcome around my house." And that hurt me more than anything else, because I was like, it would be like me doing it to you, and your mum saying to me, Gareth, you've been a family friend for years, but don't ever speak to me again. Don't ever come round this house. And I'll be like, I've actually just lost someone decent because I'm a fucking idiot. Do you know
Doing
what I mean?
it to me, that's a bit far fetched, isn't it, mate?
Well, I wouldn't be able to, would I? Because you'd probably
I'll
take me
knock
off.
you
But
clean out. I'm an animal.
But, yeah, I just
Moving swiftly on.
I just think, I don't know. Like you say though, you've got these arguments both sides. Would I have listened? Probably not. But could it do any harm going round and speaking to people? I don't think so.
If someone went through the schools like you just said, and you heard something that you could relate to, then it may have changed you.
I think the way you described it, from when you were such a young lad and you were heavily influenced by these people that you really looked up to, and I think those are the key years. As I mean, I deal with a lot of people in my job who are very similar, who they get influenced from such a young age, and at the time they look up to these people and they see them as like these idols, and they put them on pedestals and they just think, oh, they're amazing, I want to be like them. And it's not until way later where they realise they were fucking idiots. I should have never
that
even
is,
got round to.
In a nutshell, what you just said is exactly how I feel. And I'm not even. I could name many people. There was another guy I used to hang around with, a lot older than me, and I used to absolutely worship him. My mum used to say, that geezer's a fucking idiot. And I'd be like, Mum, he's my mate, don't speak about him like that. Always defended him. I don't want you hanging around with him. The more you try and stop me, I'm still gonna do it, blah blah blah. Bearing in mind, I was like 15, he was like 21. Looking back on it now, why is a 21-year-old hanging around a 15-year-old? Because he'd get me to do everything. I remember he used to get me to every time he had a problem with a guy in his area. He went and bought a bat, gave me the bat, and he was like, go and do his car for me, and I'd just do it just because I respected him and wanted to please him. But looking back on it now, that's why he had me around, because I was like his little skivvy who done all this nasty stuff that he didn't want to do. Why wouldn't you want someone like that around if you wanted all these jobs doing?
Yeah, that's what it just goes to shows your parents are always right as well.
100%. So whether it be a day later, a week later, a month later, 90%, yes mum, 90% of what she said was right, and you do realise it, whether it be the next day or next year.
I had a family member that I idolised, and my mum and dad would say keep away from him, and he done exactly the same as what your mate did then. He just, when you look back at it now, I think I was a right mug.
Someone said to me yesterday, mentioned the guy that I was just talking about who was 21, said to me yesterday, oh, he's doing alright for himself, he says nothing but good things about you. He said maybe you two could, because we're not friends anymore, and he said he's alright, he said good things about you, you both moved on, why don't you try and speak to him? I said I never want to speak to him again, because although it was 10, 15 years ago, the way he used to treat me back then was just unexcusable, and I was just a fucking complete idiot to it. And the more I say abused me, the more he took advantage of me for being young and not having my head screwed on, the more I think you're fucking out of order for that. And I've done so many horrible things on his say-so, on his click of a finger, because I was so...
that's exactly the same situation as what I had with an uncle of mine.
You're starting to bring it on to you a lot.
I do that a lot. Pot and kettle.
I've got 45 minutes, so you keep reminding me.
Well, you've had nearly that. I wanted to talk about boxing, but I think we're going to have to get you back to part two.
No, we can keep going.
How long we had?
We're good.
How long?
Just keep going. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about it.
So I'm getting bored.
No.
Door closes.
So you had your daughter.
Yeah, I had my daughter.
So that was your life-changing moment.
A lot of people don't understand when I put stuff on like social media about saying that she's the reason that I sometimes I put a picture of her and I'll put my reason, and that's what I mean, because it's not going to mean anything to you. If you was to see a picture of my daughter and it says the reason, you'd be like, whatever, I don't know, there must be a thing that he's got going on. But that's what I mean, is she's the reason that I stopped, she's the reason that I changed my life, and literally it was overnight. I'd already started to calm down, I'd already started to make changes, but she was the nail in the coffin that gave me that reason. Like I said a minute ago, you go back. When I went to prison the first time, I got out, my life was exactly the same. Second, third, fourth time, exactly the same. I'd go in, no job, no money, not a lot going on. I'd come out, my life would be exactly the same. I just picked up where I left off. Now I had reasons, now I have responsibilities, I had reasons not to go back. And I don't find it a coincidence that the whole way through my teenage years, from 15 to probably 21, 22, in and out of prison several times, and then the second I had my daughter, I haven't been to jail since. I haven't even so much been arrested for anything serious since. I've had hiccups where I've been an idiot. But yeah, I think a lot of it, maturity, growth, everything. How many... I look at people now, I've got I say friends, people I speak to or people I know who are in and out of prison now, doing a year here, 2 years there, out for a couple of months, back in. I just think, mate, you're in your 30s now. I can blame mine on being young, stupid, naive, immature, whatever. You're still doing that at 30. How can you blame? You can't blame that on being a kid.
Obviously, with your experience that you've got, and with the job that I do, it's difficult because I love the job that I do, but I genuinely, my impression now is anyone that goes to jail, you're missing out on everything. You're a mug. Like people who are in and out of jail, like they need to sort fucking lives out.
I don't know what the percentages are now, but when I was there, it was 70% of all inmates re-offend in the first 2 years.
Awful.
Well, it just shows the system's not really working, though, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yes and no, like you say, there are things that there are more that they could probably do at for a young age. The thing is, if you get someone young, then you can try and mould the future for them. But once you've already hit a certain age and you're still in and out of prison, I think it's just, do you know what I mean? You try and reform a 30-year-old that's been in that prison since they were 15 years old. I think to a certain degree you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
But you need to grab them when they're young, when they're easily influenced. As much as I was easily influenced down the wrong path, I probably could have been easily influenced down the right path as well if I had certain people in my life.
You said about going into schools and that. Would that be something you'd do?
I would do. I'd actually like to do it. Someone said to me before, what would be your dream job? And a realistic dream job, not like heavyweight champion of the world, do you know what I mean? But a realistic. And I'd say, do you know what? If someone paid me, I'd happily go into schools, not just for that reason it's paid, but if it was a job for me, I'd do it for free. But obviously, if it was a job,
because we could probably make that happen because we're going and talk about mental health and everything as well.
I would do it to the younger kids.
Yeah.
It's not 6-7 years old, but do you know what I mean? Like I'm not talking. I don't know if you're going to unis or colleges, but I'm talking like year 9s, 10s, 11s, that kind of thing. Yeah. Before they get to a point.
Well, at the age where you started.
Exactly that. For that reason.
Yeah. Well, you come on and do a part 2 about the boxing and everything as well, because I think that'd be another good podcast.
Do you know what though? Going on, we'll touch on the boxing. When my probation officers and youth offending team workers used to say to me, like, why are all your offenders violent? I don't steal. I was never into drugs or alcohol and nothing like that. It was always just violence. I just loved to scrap. That was my problem, and I didn't need an excuse to do it. You look at me wrong. You bump me in the street. You've said something bad about me. That was enough for me. I just didn't need much more of a reason. And that was always that was the truth. Why is your pattern in your offending always violent? And that's why I said to them, I just like fighting. I know it's very shallow and shit thing to say, but I love fighting. No feeling for me is the same as two men having a scrap and one person coming out on top. Whereas, do you know what I mean? And that's the same feeling I get from boxing now. Nothing makes me feel like me and another man are going to go head to head. He's going to try his hardest to beat me. I'm going to try my hardest to beat him. And then when I come out on top, that's the best for me. It's the best feeling in the world. And that's still that feeling is still exactly the same from when I was 15 years old. Is that's my, whether it's the adrenaline, whether it's the rush. I don't know what it is, but the feeling's like nothing artificial like drugs or alcohol or anything can make me feel like that. That is just. That's the truth, and that's why I started boxing, just to try and reciprocate that feeling.
That'd be a good way to end this and set it up for a part 2. But thank you very much for coming on, Gareth.
No worries.
I love you to bits.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you ever so much. I've enjoyed it. Cool. On to the next.
Yeah.